Welcome to the Relational Recovery Podcast. I'm your host, Wes Thompson, joined by my co-host, Austin Hill. Today we're talking about the best gift we can give others and what others actually need from us. We hope this conversation is helpful, and thanks for listening. Hey, Austin.
Hey, Wes. How you doing?
Good. I think it's funny when we say hey to each other when we've already been talking right before we push record.
I know, but then how would people know it's the beginning?
That's right. Well, here we are. Hope everyone that's listening is doing well. Today I want to talk about what people need, like what people need from us. There's this tension in recovery. And this is going to be really aimed probably towards people in the Refuge, but anyone else listening in, I think it'll be helpful too. But there's often this tension because especially when you're in a place like a rehab, you start to feel better, and then it's like, you feel this need to go take care of your life. Like, man, I'm ready. I need to get out there and help people, especially if you have a kid or kids or a spouse or a job you left or something. There's this sense that like, I've got to go back and take care of them. And I don't want to bury the lead here. And so I think what I want to have a conversation about is this idea that what others most need from you is your own health. What others most need from you is you becoming healthy. And this really stems from, I agree with Rich Plass and Jim Cofield from Crosspoint, because they often say, right, the best gift you can give others is your transformed and transforming presence. And I know that might sound a little bit like, what does that mean? That means the best gift you can give other people is when you show up healthy to that relationship. A short story, there's a while back I went with Rob Lee, who hangs out with some of the guys in the Refuge on Monday nights. And I went over with him and I started talking to one of the guys, and he was talking about how he misses his daughter and he's really struggling because he wants to go home to take care of her. And I really resonate with that because I have a daughter, right? And I'm like, that sounds really hard. At the same time, I asked him, well, how's that been going for you? Before you came in, how are you showing up for your daughter? And, unfortunately, I could tell there was some shame in his face, but he's like, I wasn't around. I wasn't there. And I wasn't trying to like pick on him in that moment, but I was like, I wanted to know, but two, it's like I wanted him to remember where he came from. And then I said, the best thing you can do for your daughter is for you to get better. And I believe that. I believe that wholeheartedly. And that's what I want to talk about today, because I think there's a temptation for all of us, myself included, that the moment I learn something, the moment I receive something, I want to go give it away. I feel like I'm ready to take on the world. And that's often not true, and we change slower than we'd like to admit, slower than we would like to think. And that's one of the reasons why the Refuge is 13 months long, because it takes time for people's bodies, brains, emotions, and just self to regulate back to normal. And to get some reps doing hard things well, so that when you do go home or you go back to wherever you're coming from, you have some tools in your tool belt to be able to live life in a productive, good way. Because our goal isn't just to help people be sober. Our goal is also to help people experience a life of purpose. We believe, right, that we're made by God, for God, and for relationship with other people. So it's like we want to help people realize there's a bigger purpose than what they're currently living, but also to be a productive citizen and neighbor, to work a job and provide for themselves and their family. It's way more comprehensive than just being sober. And in order to get those tools, in order to gain that confidence, there has to be some competency built. You got to do some hard things. You got to face some temptation. You got to deal with some triggers, so on and so forth, so that when you do go home, you're able to show up well. And that's the best gift you can give others, is you being healthy, So before I keep blabbering on, Austin, Yeah, what are you hearing? What comes to mind for you? Does anything stand out?
I think first off, that I want to acknowledge that like if you have the desire to then like share the good stuff that you're learning or like wanting to go help other people, especially like if this is your first time being sober for a long period of time, for like more than 3 or 4 months, you want that feeling for other people. That's a good thing. I think and at the same time, you need to realize that if you want this to be a long, sustained, healthy, continually growing sobriety, that's like, think about the magnitude of that goal, of that hope, of that desire. That's a big, big deal. And so it's going to take a lot of effort and intentionality on your part for you. And to then, I guess, break apart that focus or energy to then help other people to get to the point where you're at now, that's, again, honorable, but it may not be the best thing. And it's also not selfish to pause and focus on yourself to get healthy. So the two things that stand out to me is like the time it takes to continually be healthy and to continually grow is always a longer process than we want it to be. And it is not selfish to want to be healthy and to put the effort into yourself being healthy. So I think that's difficult because like it often feels, I know that I often feel selfish when like, man, I need 15 to 30 minutes every day where I can do something that's focused on my own self-improvement. And that used to feel really selfish, but I notice that on the days that I don't do that, and I usually write, reading and writing is really helpful. And if I don't do that, I'm not as focused or like intentional or present with the people I care about most when I don't put that time in. So there's been many times when I've had to like stop in the middle of the day and like, man, this doesn't seem like I have all this giant list of things that I need to get done that other people are counting on that I said I would do. I can't take these 15 minutes to like clear my thoughts or to like really sit down and be still for my own improvement. When in reality, like it's going to make the next 4 to 8 hours a lot better, not only for me, but for the people around me. So it's this like, almost contrary way of thinking where in order for me to be more present with people, that doesn't mean I'm emptying myself out to exhaustion and, complete emptiness. Like you have to find those things that can fill you back up and give you the energy to continue to go. And that's on you to choose your improvement and your health. So yeah. Those are the two things that stand out. It takes a lot of time, and it is not selfish.
No, it's not selfish because if you don't do the work to get better, if you don't do the work to be healthy, you are not going to help other people well. So nobody wins in the end. It's the whole principle of like, if you go on a plane and they go through that whole exercise at the beginning, that whole spiel that no one listens to, but they say, right, if the plane's going down and the oxygen masks come down, what do they say? They say, grab your oxygen mask first before you try to help somebody else. The same principle is true here. Because oftentimes you're right. Well, we will deny this, especially religious people will deny this in the name of not being selfish because we should care about God and others, not ourselves. The problem is if we don't tend to our own souls, we don't do our own work, we will not make it, and then we're a help to no one, and we actually become a harm to others. And so it isn't selfish. We have to do our own work. Like that's a core belief of mine. Like everybody has to do their own work. And if you neglect to, and especially if you call it bad, you call it selfish and you don't do it, you're not going to be able to help others because you're going to end up doing something that's going to take you out of the game.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And there's this mentality that like, well, I can help other people so they can take care of themselves. I don't need to take care of myself because, I can handle it. I'm like, so I guess you're Jesus now. So everybody, I am special. I am different than everybody else. I sacrifice more than everybody else. I give more than anybody else. Like, I don't need anybody's help, including Jesus's, who also took time for himself. Because, like that's the thing. Like Jesus intentionally took time to rest so that he could be present with other people. So like, we are not that special. Like, you are not that special. The person who's hearing this, who's saying like, I just don't have time to take care of myself. You're choosing to use your time other ways. Like, and we're not talking, and I think also should be important. It's not that much time that we're talking about. So like, if you put 15 minutes into working intentional, focused 15 minutes every day on working on yourself, that's going to have a huge impact. It's 15 minutes. So like, we're not saying, hey, during the day when you're at work, stop everything and take 30 minutes to an hour to just, sit and be quiet and meditate, pray. That's not what we're saying. It's fine. Like, there are times throughout every day that are appropriate and it makes sense for you to do that for yourself. And that's not selfish. You actually work really, and if you think about it, you work really hard to fill in your day so that you, quote unquote, don't have time to do this stuff. So it is a choice. And like, I don't think that's too harsh. I think it's true. We are choosing to either fill our day with things that aren't nearly as important, to take care of other people's problems that they should be taking care of. When if I just took those 15, 30 minutes every day to focus on my health, on who I am as a person, who I am as an image bearer of God, that's going to have a major impact throughout the rest of the day. And it's a difficult practice to create.
Yeah. I think it's also true, right? We want to help others before we help ourselves. I think it's also true that we want to criticize others before we first look at ourselves. So, if you find yourself grumbling, complaining, and criticizing a lot, I think that's often a red flag. I'll just say that, But like, are you looking in the mirror enough? Are you looking in the mirror enough? Because all of us, we get caught up, right? One of the things that happens is we get caught up in this do trap. So some of you're thinking about like your future, your job, like I said earlier, kids, a spouse, a girlfriend, family, parents, whatever. But listen, until you get better, none of that other stuff's going to work out. Until you get healthy, none of that other stuff's going to work out. What all of those other people and things need from you is to show up well. What they need more than anything from you is to get better, is to get healthy. That's what they need from you.
Yeah, and how you show up well is being confident in who you are. And the only way to figure out how to be confident in who you are, or just to be self-controlled, is to get to know yourself and how you think and operate and process things and what is important to you and what is not. And what is in your control and what is not. That takes time to figure out.
It does.
Because that list, like if I think about like my list of like what are the things that are actually within my control, it is not my kids, it's not my wife, it's not my job, it's not the people that I work with. Because Wes, I can't control you. I can't control the weather. I can't control like what happens in the day. I can, however, control what I think. I actually can't even control my body to an extent. Like I can control what I eat and how I exercise and what I drink. If I decide to drink just coffee, that's my choice and it's going to make me unhealthy. So like there's things within my control that and for whatever reason, like disease happens to people who work really hard to be healthy. I didn't have any control over whether I get cancer or not. I can put effort into it, but so there's a very limited number of things that I actually do control. And the biggest one is what I think and then what I choose to do. That's it. So it's a small list, but like the energy goes into, if I say this or that, what will Wes think? Or if I say this or that, what will the people that I work with think? Or how will they respond? They might get mad. Man, I can't control that. But if I'm confident in what I think and what I believe, then I'm able to, again, be present and respond well and appropriately in a healthy way when I know I'm going to say something or make a decision that makes somebody upset. Or if I have to say something that's true, that's difficult to hear, or hold somebody accountable. Like I know it's like I can, by thinking through that, by having that time throughout the day and processing this and being confident in it, that's how you show up and be present with the people you care about, is how you think. Because right thinking leads to right action. And it's really hard to think right when you don't have enough time to think about anything other than just like what's happening in front of you all the time.
Yeah, that's really good. I mean, it's hard work to change. That's the reality. It's hard work. And it's multidimensional. It's not just one thing. It's like I said, it's not just being sober. It's not just like not, taking a substance. It's how do you show up, to somebody who's hurting? How do you care for the people that you love and want to love you? How do you interact with coworkers when things don't go the way you want it to go? All of this is required in order to function well. And it takes time and it takes reps to cultivate that, right?
Mm-hmm.
If we're going to be responsible men of God, we're going to have to, it's going to take effort. It's going to take work, and we're going to be uncomfortable. But the only way we grow is when we're uncomfortable. Oftentimes the only way we grow is through some level of pain. And so if you notice, that's something I've spent a lot of time talking to you about, talking to others about, Austin, but it's like, as someone who was pain avoidant for a long time, just learning more and more and realizing more and more, the absence of pain, the absence of being uncomfortable is actually a bad thing. If we're constantly comfortable, that means we're not growing. And so I think sometimes we get caught in this doo-doo trap. We just want to fix everything. We want to do more, or maybe we want to run away, or maybe we want to make things easier. We feel like going home will be easier. We feel like, there's just all kinds of things we tell ourselves. There's a pressure to perform. There's a pressure to change. There's an impatience with this kind of work, right? I think at the Refuge, right, it's over a year. There's an impatience. I want to get to the next phase of life. What's crazy is I talk to people in recovery. I'm doing my own work, meeting with people. I talk to people that aren't in recovery, and that theme persists throughout. Oftentimes when we're not healthy, there's this sense of discontentment and impatience that I want to be somewhere other than where I am. I want to be in a different phase of life. I want to have a different job. I want to have more time. And it's like, man, if I could get to this next step, if I was just 5 more years down the road or whatever, there's a discontentment and impatience. And I think that part of being healthy is being able to be at peace with where I am and enjoy the journey of where I am and be awake and present with what God is doing in my life right now, and not just trying to push through the challenges. Because I think a lot of times that pushing through the challenges is because we believe this lie that, like, man, if I just can do X, Y, or Z, I'll be comfortable. Everything will be easy. We chase ease and we chase comfort. And that's often the very thing that'll kill us. So yeah, I know that I'm saying a lot here, but I really believe that. So I don't know if anything there stands out to you.
Yeah, I think it's I know that we've talked about this, but I think the hope for a productive life, if it's what do we have in mind? If we were to think about, like, what do we want our life to look like? And if we think about it, like, in the future, if I think 10 years in the future, what do I want my ideal life to look like? It's not one that's, like, in reality, it's never going to be one where there aren't challenges, pain, or difficulties. I want to handle them differently and be prepared, better prepared to handle them. And I hope that I'm putting habits in place, whether it's like my physical health, how I respond in conflict, my personal finances, like the relationships I have with my kids. Like the work that we put in now is to strengthen those relationships. So in 10 years, if something crazy happens, we have this solid relationship that we're able to go through the challenges together and get to the other side. It's not to, hey, I'm going to put all this work in right now, so in 10 years, if things go sideways, it ends. Like, or hopefully, like, I don't have any relationships because, then I don't have to deal with all these people, but then I'm just alone. So it's not I'm not trying to create a life that is void of challenges, that is easy. I am seeking to build a life that I'm able to handle these challenges in a healthy way, because they will always be there. Like, I look around, find somebody who has a challenge-free life. Like, that's, like, honestly, like, try that. Like, oh, what, like, and they're like, well, the person that I like, or the person that you really look up to, look at their life, and every single person that I look up to or that I respect has their own challenges. And I'm like, there isn't somebody out there who was free of challenge. Like the really obvious one is just like, oh, who do we want to emulate the most? As Christians, the stereotypical response is Jesus. Okay, let's look at Jesus's life. That went really well. Like, he did live a perfect life, but, like, before he was born, people tried to kill him. When he was a toddler, he, like, disappeared for a while. Like, his parents became refugees in Egypt. That wasn't easy. He stayed at home and was mocked at his hometown. Like, he had to run away. He had to, like, escape from his own hometown. And then he was executed by the state. Like, that sounds like a lot of challenges to me. Like, we're not seeking out a life that's free from that. We're wanting to get strong and resilient in the face of them.
Yeah. No, I mean, absolutely. That's really good.
Yeah. I think it's almost exhausting to think that somebody is like, well, I'm going to, like, it would be great if if everyone could just change their perspective from, I'm seeking a life of comfort and ease. That's not real. Like, every great work of literature, historical figure, you look at the people who sought that out, they ended up alone, broken, and devastated because it's not real. Great Gatsby is a good one. Like, it's not real. Like, think about, like, everything. That life isn't real. And that's not to say that, like, oh, it's like, what's the point? Why are we even here? It's through the challenges that we build and foster these in really strong bonds with people we care about. That's what life is about, is that we are made for connection with each other, but we get connected through each other through challenges.
Yeah. Life's hard. There's no way around it. we get to choose. What we often talk about is we get to choose what kind of hard we want. Do we want the kind of hard that's the result of making poor choices and dealing with consequences? Or do we want the kind of hard that's required to grow and get healthier and get better, that's going to result in a fulfilling life. You know, Arthur Brooks wrote a book recently, and I haven't read it yet. I want to read it, but it's about happiness. He's a researcher on happiness, and one of the big takeaways I know that I was reading in like an article or something that he mentioned was, you know, they found in their research that happiness can only be found when our pursuit of happiness isn't only about our happiness. In other words, we only can find happiness when we're seeking the betterment of others as well. And obviously, it's really encouraging that the research found that, because that's very in line with what Jesus taught and with Christianity. There's the paradox, right, of in order to gain your life, you have to lose your life. And when we hear Jesus say that, we're like, what in the world is he trying to say? Well, there's a gaining in service and sacrifice. When we realize that we're not going to be happy in just pursuing this like egocentric, narcissistic, it's all about me approach to life. Happiness is only found when I'm not just pursuing happiness for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's significant to recognize.
And happiness is also not found in seeking out the happiness only for others. Like that's not when Jesus says to give up your life, it doesn't mean that like you no longer matter.
Right.
It's I want to make sure I say it clearly. It's acknowledging that you need other people. You need somebody, you need something bigger than yourself. And what we talk about is like, you need this real, like I am giving up my life for Jesus so that I can be healthier, so that I can serve others better, because there's a better way.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean I'm pointless and worthless anymore. It means that, oh, I have value. I am equally important. So I'm giving up this idea that I alone can solve it. I'm giving up this idea that I am the most important person. I am laying down my life and realizing that I am an equal part to this life around me. So that like I have to put effort into myself. I have to be able to help other people put effort into themselves. It's not a either or. You have to be able to do both, because Jesus died for us. He died for me. I'm not going to negate that and ignore it. He died for me. So I'm going to live a life that's worth that. That's my choice.
That's good, man. I think I want to start to land the plane just thinking about next steps. You know, what's something that just came to mind I've been reading about lately. Because right, we started this saying like the most important thing that others need from us is our own health, that we show up well. And we might be asking ourselves, or you might be asking, like, what does that look like? And I think a good place to start, like what comes to mind for me, just one thing is take a minute and evaluate yourself right now. Look at yourself in the mirror. Don't think about someone else. And I want you to answer this question. Are you giving more than you take? Are you giving more than you take? And you might say, giving what? Taking what? It doesn't matter. I think a good starting point, a good principle is, if you're going to be a good friend, if you're going to be a good father, if you're going to be a good spouse, if you're going to be a good neighbor, a good rule of thumb is, man, try to give more than you take. Try to give more than you take. And obviously, Austin, you and I talk about reciprocity a lot, healthy relationships. There's a good equality between giving and taking. So I think what I'm aiming at right now when I say give more than you take is, don't be so preoccupied with what you're getting. Am I getting enough? I want more. But just give. Give yourself to others. Like if you see someone hurting, encourage them. Like when you leave a room, are people more deflated by your presence, or are they encouraged by your presence? Because right now, if you're a taker more than you're a giver, you're going to go back and cause more hell than good wherever you're going to go to. And I'm not saying that being judgmental, but friend, whoever's listening, like if you're a taker still, meaning more you take more than you give, then stay away from the people that you love because you're going to cause them more hell.
Yeah. And I think that here's the other thing. So it almost sounds like we're saying that different. It's like we're saying contradictory things. We have to take time to take care of ourselves so that we can help take care of other people. And we're also saying give more than you take. So if we think about that, that means that I want to be giving of myself more. And if we think that that's true, that means that it needs to be true of the people around me. So that means the people around me are going to be giving more than they're taking, right? So that means that I have to be okay with receiving. So, and if every time someone tries to give me support, give me comfort, give me love, and I take it from them and throw it on the ground and ignore it and say, I don't need that, I reject them. You're taking someone's gift. You are being selfish. You are saying you don't need them. So it is something we have to be aware of, where if I deny every single time someone tries to give me something, that is just as selfish as the person who is only caring about what they get and only taking and focusing on taking. So there is this this pridefulness in both extremes. It's accepting when people are giving and serving you. And it's being able to be okay when I give to others. I'm going to do it imperfectly, but I have to make sure that I'm giving.
Yeah, that's good. A few other questions that come to mind is when you think about kind of where you're at in terms of health, or where I'm at in terms of health, how are you doing in times of stress? Right? We don't. It's not a good barometer of how well we are if we're in a place of peace. But if you haven't been in stress lately, you need to be, because you need to know really where you're at. So, what happens when you're in stress? Are you handling it well? That's a good indicator of health. How are you handling triggers right now? I mean, that's similar but different. Because if you're in recovery, there are specific triggers related to the behaviors that you're not wanting to do anymore. So when those happen, what are you doing? What are you doing? Are you handling it well? And if you think about not being in a place like the Refuge, how would you handle it if you weren't here? Would you handle it well? Are you aiming to find happiness just for yourself or also for others? We touched on that theme a minute ago, but take inventory. Where are you at with that? Are you aiming to find happiness just for yourself or also for others? The groups that you're in, the individual counseling that you're in. Do you notice that you're talking only always about your own needs, or are you cognizant and aware of others' needs as well?
I think you also need to be aware if the only thing you talk about is other people's needs, and anything that's brought on you and shines a light on you, you deflect it. That's not taking ownership of your crap. It's masking it with the guise of I'm just thinking about others. That's not helpful. Everybody can think of somebody that's, when you're how are you doing? Fine. Good. I'm good. No, everything's great. We all know that's not true. That's selfishness. That's pride. That's saying, I don't need help. And the really scary thing that we do in Christian circles is someone's like, Jesus has my back. I'm good. I don't need to share my stuff with you.
Yeah. Jesus juke.
Yeah. It's a Jesus juke. Buddy, you are literally in a Christian community of people who care about you, and you're choosing to waste your time and ours by saying, I don't need anybody's help here. I've got Jesus in the Bible. That's true, but it's not helpful.
Yes, there's literally a term for this. They've coined a term because this has become such a problem. It's called spiritual bypassing.
Yep.
It's called spiritual bypassing. And what spiritual bypassing is, we all need to be aware of this. Spiritual bypassing is when we use our spirituality to deflect what is actually going on in our life. So it's exactly what you just said, Austin. There's people I know that I'll say, how you doing? Oh, good, brother. God's good. Better than I deserve. And listen, I'm not trying to make fun of that. And if someone's genuinely means that, I'm not trying to make fun of it. But oftentimes people will do that so they don't have to really answer the question.
Because they're not being honest.
Yeah. So they're using Jesus as a deflection to not actually talk about what's going on. That's spiritual bypassing. That's not going to lead to good things. We shouldn't use our faith as a means to not be honest with others or ourselves.
There's somebody who was really good at of an example of someone who doesn't spiritually bypass historically, biblically, is David. Just read the Psalms.
Yeah, just read the Psalms.
He constantly talking about challenges, difficulties that he faced. That doesn't mean he doesn't believe in God. That doesn't mean that we're questioning our faith. It's saying like, man, today sucked. This was really hard. This person said this to me. This relationship I have with my family member is just under an intense amount of strain. That doesn't mean that I don't believe in Jesus. It doesn't mean that I don't think he can comfort me. I'm just being honest with what's going on. Because by sharing those challenges and stories, we're able to connect with each other in different ways, because it's saying by sharing your pain and your story, other people can connect with you. It's like, that pain is similar to mine. I am not alone. Like, quit being selfish, especially quit using Jesus as a reason to not be honest. Because, if I say that everything's not wonderful, then I'm saying I don't believe in Jesus. Be honest. Don't exaggerate. Don't diminish. Just be honest about what's going on. Because that's what Jesus wants from us.
That's good. Last question to consider is, am I a peacemaker? To know. And last question to kind of gauge, am I growing in my own health, since that's the best gift we can give others? Am I a peacemaker, or do I tend to bring chaos with me wherever I go? When I think about the last couple weeks, and I think about the people I've interacted with, does peace tend to follow me, or does chaos tend to follow me? You know, it's sad, but there's some people that just aren't very self-aware, and everything else is everyone else's fault. But it's like everywhere they go, there's a path of chaos. And you know what the common denominator is? Them. So don't fool yourself. Pay attention. Are you a peacemaker? Are you a chaos maker? Because again, if you're feeling the need to I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go do something. I'm ready to launch. I'm ready. It's like, if you're a chaos maker, like, don't go back to the people you love, because you're just going to cause more chaos. Right? The best gift we can give others is our transformed and transforming presence. The best gift we can give others is our own health. Because if we show up well, we can then be a blessing to others, but we've got to do our own work first. I know it sounds contradictory, like you pointed out, Austin, but the goal is we do our own work, right? We do our own work. No one else can do our work for us. We cultivate health. We continue to cultivate health. And then when we show up in the day in and day out rhythms of life, we can show up healthy for others. And then we can actually be a blessing to people. That's how it works. Any last thoughts?
Yeah, it's if we really do think that other people's growth is more important than our own, we're missing the point. It's equally important. When Jesus says, he's like, he loves the world, he died for us. He didn't die more for you than he did for me. And he didn't die less for me and more for you. It's equal. So we have to put in the work for ourselves, because that's the type of life that can handle the challenges. That's the type of life that God wants us to lead, is one that is, we are healthy so that we can help other people be healthy. Not, I figured out what it means to be healthy, so I'm going to go help other people do it, but I'm not going to do it. That's never going to work. So we are equal in this.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Relational Recovery Podcast. We'll be back soon with a new conversation. We'll see you then.